1 Georgians will be diagnosed with HIV in their lifetime, and Atlanta is the epicenter of the Southern epidemic.
Down south has the highest risk of all HIV rates across the country.
Atlanta is as bad as Zimbabwe or Harare or Durban.
Emory's Dr. Carlos Del Rio compares Atlanta's AIDS problem to third world countries. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention says if you live in the Southeast, you're more likely to be diagnosed with HIV than any other part of the country. In Georgia, the risk of diagnosis leaps to 1 in...
Or human immunodeficiency virus. It was first recognized in the early 80s in the US, but it has its roots in 1920s Kinshasa. A bustling city, more than 1 million pass through each year. Thanks to newly built railways and a thriving sex trade, the virus spreads up the river to Kisangani, to the diamond capital, Mbuji-Mayi, and the copper mines of Lubumbashi, to the US in 1968, before exploding around the world in the 1980s. 78 million people infected worldwide and counting, and the spread is far from equal. 70% live in sub-Saharan Africa. But antiretroviral drugs offer hope. New infections are down by over a third. Mother-to-child transmission has more than halved, and globally there's been a 35% decrease in deaths. But in the Middle East and North Africa, deaths have doubled. And globally, only 37% of those living with HIV have access to treatment. So the challenge now is to make those life-saving drugs available to everyone.
About 37 million people around the world are currently living with AIDS, making the disease one of the worst pandemics in modern history. AIDS, or acquired immunodeficiency syndrome, is a disease in which the human immune system is severely impaired. It's caused by the human immunodeficiency virus, or HIV, and is the last stage of the virus's infection. HIV attacks by entering the bloodstream and attaches to helper T, or CD4 cells. A type of white blood cell, CD4 cells are responsible for fighting infections. First, HIV attaches itself to a CD4 cell and fuses with it. Then, HIV releases its genetic material into the CD4 cell, which combines with the cell's DNA. This allows the virus to produce more HIV proteins inside the cell. The proteins are then packaged and released to attack other CD4 cells. Without HIV medicines, an individual's infection may spread and within 10 to 12 years, advance to become AIDS. This decreased immunity makes patients with AIDS vulnerable to a number of diseases, including infections, dementia, and cancer. Scientists believe that HIV originated in West Central Africa, where a similar virus was found in chimpanzees and gorillas. Around the turn of the 20th century, the virus was transmitted to humans due to the handling of chimpanzee meat. The virus then spread from the African continent during the mid-1960s through a single carrier, eventually making its way around the world. In 1982, scientists labeled the illness as AIDS, and the following year identified the virus as HIV. Ever since, about 77.3 million people around the world have contracted HIV, with the majority of affected individuals living in countries with very few resources. Scientists are working to one day develop a cure for AIDS. In the meantime, advancements in biotechnology, plus increased awareness, prevention, and access to healthcare, are saving many lives and may hold the key to finally exterminating the disease.
Well, it was 1987.
87, not 79, 87.
The 10th of February.
Okay.
My mother knew they were coming. When I told my mama that I had cured my 13 AIDS patient, she said, "They gonna get you."
It is ordered, adjudged, and decreed that respondents are permanently enjoined from engaging in any fraudulent, deceptive, or illegal acts or practices, including, but not limited to, number 1, claiming, orally or in writing, directly or by implication, that respondents, their services, or their products can cure, mitigate, or in any way relieve or alter the course of AIDS, herpes, leukemia, sickle cell anemia, lupus, or any other human disease, pain, injury, deformity, or physical condition. Number 2, distributing or publishing any advertisement, brochures, or other printed matter, or broadcasting any advertisement which claims directly or by implication that respondents, their services, or their products can cure, mitigate, or in any way relieve or alter the course of AIDS, herpes, leukemia, sickle cell anemia, lupus, or any other human disease, pain, injury, deformity, or physical condition. Dr. Sebi's trial ended in his favor. His method of healing continues.
My mother said, "They're going to get you." I said, "But Mom, why are they going to get me?" Because you must remember that you live in a society that supports a certain philosophy and a certain system. You being the color that you are, black, and then you're going against the grain, they're going to get you. So when I'm in my office on February the 10th, here come the detectives. You are charged with practicing medicine without a license, selling product not approved by the FDA, and claiming to cure AIDS and other diseases. Mm-hmm. I said, "Yes." "Well, you are making a fraudulent claim." Mm-hmm. I asked the detective, "How do you know that?" Mm-hmm. Called my door and took me to jail. But the funny thing about it, I was happy. I was very, very, extremely happy. When everybody in my office was crying, I was happy because my mama told me they were coming. And I knew that I had sufficient evidence to prove my position. Not only scientifically, empirically, historically, and whatever way they would desire. So while I was in jail, I'm saying, I wonder what defense they would have against me.
Yeah.
I would like to know. But I didn't blame the Attorney General, Mr. Robert Abrams, because why should he accept from me the statement that I cure AIDS and sickle cell and blindness when no one else has ever made those claims? The man had a right to arrest me, but he was making a mistake. So I'm sitting in jail, and I'm happy. When I got out of jail and when I went in front of the judge, I asked 3 questions.
And they were?
They were, "Your Honor."
You defended yourself?
Of course I did.
Okay.
"Your Honor, is it a fact that the Holy Bible teaches that the herbs are for the healing of the nations?" She said, "Yes." "Is it a fact that science shows that the human body is carbon-based, and to complement a carbon-based body, you must have a carbon-based substance to complement it, because the body only accepts a substance through the process of chemical affinity. Chemical affinity is important. It's an electrical transfer. Chemical affinity.
Okay.
The body could only accept what it is made of, not something new or alien to it. Last question. Your Honor, is it a fact that the father of medicine, Mr. Hippocrates, the man that established the principle of medical science today, cured every disease known to man? Did he use herbs or chemicals? She said, herbs. I said, thank you very much. I rest my case. So I understood that the state were unprepared to defend itself. They were unprepared because in the past there was 2,781 cases that came before the Supreme Court and lost.
Yeah.
I won.
Yeah.
Not only did I prove scientifically, but I had the diagnostic sheets, and I do have them today. And those diagnostic sheets didn't come from me. They came from their school, their American accredited, medical accredited school. We have to remember this, that whenever you make a statement that goes against the grain, you better be prepared. You better be prepared. The judge said that I had to bring one of every patient that I had cured, and there was one that said others. The other was a man that came from Italy. He was paralyzed. But I was supposed to take 9. I took 77.
You took 77 patients in court with you?
That's correct. But I knew that my brain was not the same as your brain or any other brain, right? We're unique.
Yeah.
So when I make a statement, they're going to take my statement and pit it against philosophy. It doesn't fit. I represent an entity that isn't philosophical. It's an African one. I'm an African. And we have to remember that. You see, we think that we could take a philosophy out of Europe or China and inculcate that into the African brain. It does not resonate. It cannot resonate. You cannot be yourself when you've been adulterated. Being that I am an African, I'm going to look at things the African way. And the African way seems to reduce things to the least common denominator. And guess what I found? That there's only one disease, not 2, not 3, 1. When I opened my big black mouth and told the judge that, oh my God. What did you say? I said, Your Honor, there's only one disease.
And what is
Could
that?
you substantiate that?
Okay.
Of course, I'm not going to just deploy a bunch of empty words. I represent a country. I represent a people. I represent a race. And I represent myself. I'm not going to undermine myself. There's only one disease. The judge said, what is it? I said, you already know. She said, try me. It was a woman, Ann Thelman. I said, Your Honor, when someone has sinusitis, what is obstructing the nasal passage? She said, mucus. And when another has bronchitis, what is obstructing the bronchial tubes? She said, mucus. And when another has pneumonia, what's covering the cells of the lungs? She said, mucus. Dr. Victor Herbert, who is defending the state of New York, jumped up and said, what about AIDS? You and your one disease theory? I said, Your Honor, this doctor is saying that I believe in a theory. I am the last individual on earth that could believe in a theory. I do not lend myself to theories or philosophy. Either I know or I don't know.
Okay.
He's talking about theories.
Yeah.
I'm talking about reality, not theories, not philosophy.
So please share with this.
So she said, and what about AIDS?
Yeah.
So, well, he asked about what about AIDS? He want to know where the mucus. I said, Your Honor, have you been to an AIDS ward? She said, yes. I said, what is it that the AIDS spits up every 5 minutes? She said, mucus. Where is the mucus? It's in the skin, it's in the blood, and the lymphatic system that makes up the immunological system. That is where you find the mucus, Mr. Victor Herbert. How could you agree with, how can you disagree with truth? You see, what happened, I didn't go to school. I have never been to school. I have never attended any school, kindergarten, grade school, high school, or anything. But I had parents that kept me anchored to the African way, not to the Chinese way, not to the European way, not to the Japanese way. I am an African.
Were your patients all of color?
No, no. I have patients that are white. I have more white patients than I have black.
Okay, so this scourge that, has just run rampant, through the world, AIDS. Can you walk us through as much as you can a step-by-step process where you have a patient that has AIDS and you do XYZ or ABC, and then the patient no longer has AIDS? Can you walk us through that?
Of course. When the first patient was a brother in Boston named Michael White, and a sister, she's from D.C. Her name is, oh boy, I forgot her name right now.
Okay.
But she told me, she said, Dr. Sevi, my brother-in-law brother has AIDS in Boston. So what do you do? I said, well, I must send him the compound. The compound that I made were made to cleanse the cells. They come in the category of phosphates, carbonates, iodides, and bromides. Now we are entering the science of biochemistry. These are food and vitalizers. I remove from the man's diet lactose, uric acid, and carbonic acid, milk, starches, and meat. By removing these things from his diet and then cleansing his cells, he began to see recovery in 24 hours. And so it went. They kicked him out of the hospital 2 weeks later. Memorial Hospital in Boston, Dr. Bonanno. Then there was a young man in D.C. Zelma Peterson is her name. Zelma Peterson.
Yeah.
She was the one that introduced me to my second AIDS patient, and from then it was all the way alive.
Okay. Now, you have documented.
I got proof now.
You have proof.
I have books with the documents in it, diagnostic sheets.
Yeah. And the medical world still puts out that you are a quack, you're a crazy man, you're not credentialed, and that you run scams on people. But you have documented proof of healing people. Now, I know that you have you reference a compound in Honduras. You also operate out of Los Angeles also. So when you get a patient now, if you have a DC patient, does that DC patient need to go to LA or Honduras? Or?
No, we treat them. In fact, we send 1,000 packages a day throughout the world right now. Israel, Hong Kong, China, Russia. We have people in the village now from Russia. We have people from all over the world. We send packages all over the world. You don't have to even be in Honduras. But it is good to go to Honduras because the thermal waters are there.
Yeah.
And they accelerate the process of healing once you immerse your body in it and you drink it.
You speak of Honduras.
Now, about the medical science saying that I'm a quack,
Yeah.
I do not blame medical science for making that statement, because my race has never done anything on that level of endeavor to express itself able to cure diseases on that level, in other words. So, sure, I'm a quack, but I don't care what they say.
Yeah.
What I was concerned with, not medical science, because I know that they're the one that is violating. I am not the violator. Hippocrates did not establish the school of medicine by using chemicals, because the chemicals cannot assimilate. A chemical cannot assimilate with the human body. An herb can, because they are electrical.
Okay.
Herbs are electrical, and we have yet to understand that. I was concerned with the black leadership of America, not medical science. When I had cured these people of sickle cell and lupus and herpes and blindness, I was happy. I said, now I could go to all the leaders. I could go to Minister Farrakhan. I could go to Jesse Jackson. I could go to Al Sharpton. I could go to Oprah Winfrey. But what I found out, I was mistaken. I was wrong. They are not interested in the healing of any black people.
That's an explosive claim.
That is not an explosive statement. That is a reality. There isn't a black leader in America that is interested in the health of the black race.
Do you say that because they refuse to interact with you?
They are not in the position to respond. If they were, my first case of AIDS was cured in 1984.
Yeah.
And since then, we've been curing people of lupus and herpes and cancer and blindness. And not one black leader ever said, well, let us help the brother. My approach is an intracellular cleansing. What causes disease in the first place? An acid condition. Well, let us sweep it out. Let us find the plants that are consistent with cleansing. You see, we just begin to wake up. We just begin to realize that we are way in a deep deficit. And we have never spent time in analyzing or even trying to understand the difference in our genetic predisposition. We have never understood the science of biochemistry. All of the folks that have came to us, they came to us with history, bunch of history, a lot of religion, a lot of philosophy, but none of them came with a food that would help me to live as healthy as I possibly can. Look carefully. We're not going to make excuses no more. Because if we continue to make excuses, we're going to go deeper into the deficit. Just recently, a report came out that the Christian diet need to be examined, re-examined. Because in the Christian diet, you have people eating hog, potatoes, rice, and beans. But if we take this substance to a biochemist, he's not going to find any food in any of these substances. So why do we eat these things? Then we get sick. I always use that black woman in the jungle. For some reason, she keeps showing up. This black woman in the jungle keeps showing up as setting the standards and raising the bar. Why? I mean, this woman was the woman that set the standards. This woman didn't die because of disease. She didn't have any hospitals in the jungle. She didn't have any doctors. She didn't have any medicine. That's why Hippocrates said that your medicine should be your food, or your food should be your medicine, because the African people didn't have a doctor. They didn't need them because they didn't have any of the substance that would violate the biology of the individual. So how long did they live? Do you and I know how long those Africans lived in the forests of Africa before the chemical people came? Furthermore, my mama wasn't naked. She was natural. Because to say that my mama was naked in the forest is to say that God made clothes.
In 2008, something incredible happened. A man was cured of HIV. In over 70 million HIV cases, that was a first, and so far a last. We don't yet understand exactly how he was cured. We can cure people of various diseases, such as malaria and hepatitis C, so why can't we cure HIV? Well, first, let's examine how HIV infects people and progresses into AIDS. HIV spreads through exchanges of bodily fluids. Unprotected sex and contaminated needles are the leading cause of transmission. It fortunately cannot spread through air, water, or casual contact. Individuals of any age, sexual orientation, gender, and race can contract HIV. Once inside the body, HIV infects cells that are part of the immune system. It particularly targets helper T cells, which help defend the body against bacterial and fungal infections. HIV is a retrovirus, which means it can write its genetic code into the genome of infected cells, co-opting them into making more copies of itself. During the first stage of HIV infection, the virus replicates within helper T cells, destroying many of them in the process. During this stage, patients often experience flu-like symptoms, but are typically not yet in mortal danger. However, for a period ranging from a few months to several years, during which time the patient may look and feel completely healthy, the virus continues to replicate and destroy T cells. When T cell counts drop too low, patients are in serious danger of contracting deadly infections that healthy immune systems can normally handle. This stage of HIV infection is known as AIDS. The good news is, there are drugs that are highly effective at managing levels of HIV and preventing T cell counts from getting low enough for the disease to progress to AIDS. With antiretroviral therapy, most HIV-positive people can expect to live long and healthy lives and are much less likely to infect others. However, there are two major catches. One is that HIV-positive patients must keep taking their drugs for the rest of their lives. Without them, the virus can make a deadly comeback. So, how do these drugs work? The most commonly prescribed ones prevent the viral genome from being copied and incorporated into a host cell's DNA. Other drugs prevent the virus from maturing or assembling, causing HIV to be unable to infect new cells in the body. But HIV hides out somewhere our current drugs cannot reach it, inside the DNA of healthy T cells. Most T cells die shortly after being infected with HIV. But in a tiny percentage, the instructions for building more HIV viruses lies dormant, sometimes for years. So even if we could wipe out every HIV virus from an infected person's body, one of those T cells could activate and start spreading the virus again. The other major catch is that not everyone in the world has access to the therapies that could save their lives. In sub-Saharan Africa, which accounts for over 70% of HIV patients worldwide, antiretrovirals reached only about 1 in 3 HIV-positive patients in 2012. There is no easy answer to this problem. A mix of political, economic, and cultural barriers makes effective prevention and treatment difficult. And even in the US, HIV still claims more than 10,000 lives per year. However, there is ample cause for hope. Researchers may be closer than ever to developing a true cure. One research approach involves using a drug to activate all cells harboring the HIV genetic information. This would both destroy those cells and flush the virus out into the open, where our current drugs are effective. Another is looking to use genetic tools to cut the HIV DNA out of cells' genomes altogether. And while one cure out of 70 million cases may seem like terrible odds, one is immeasurably better than 0. We now know that a cure is possible, and that may give us what we need to beat HIV for good.